So hello everybody, this is Angus Woodward, and I recently came back from the 12th Annual Teaching Professor Conference in Atlanta at the end of May 2015, and I decided to try an experiment. I thought of a way of sharing what I brought back with me, or one of the things I brought back from the conference that I thought might interest those of you, some of you at the lake. And so the Teaching Professor Conference is a very good conference. You know, it focuses on teaching and learning in all the disciplines, and so it's multidisciplinary, and there's a lot of energy and a lot of collegiality, a lot less competition than you might find at a discipline-specific conference. And so it was a really terrific conference. Lots of sessions focusing on a variety of topics related to the scholarship of teaching and learning, and to teaching effectiveness, and to enhancing learning, and to using technology in the classroom, and assessing student learning, all that kind of good stuff. And so, of course, this page is promoting next year's conference, which will be similar. And if you need to, you can pause this video to take a closer look at it. But one session in particular was very interesting to me because it presented some new things that I was not familiar with, and I thought that they had potentially some application to what we do here at the lake and to our mission. So I want to just kind of give you a quick overview. So the session I went to was called The Lighthearted Professor, Positive Psychology for the Master Teacher, presented by Kristen Rausch, who is a psychology professor in Albuquerque. And so this is essentially her handout, one of her handouts. She called it the background handout. And so you can see at the top she kind of talks a little bit about how she came across this topic of positive psychology, which I had not really heard much about, but it's been around since the late 90s. And its principles are represented in this first source that she lists, Character, Strengths, and Virtues, a Handbook and Classification. It's kind of the positive version of the DSM, which of course focuses on disorders, and this focuses on positive strengths and virtues. So this idea of positive psychology I thought was very interesting. And of course she was interested in how it applied to the field of teaching and effectiveness in teaching. And so she lists some additional articles and so on that she recommended that kind of talk about that intersection between positive psychology and effective teaching. And this last reference, number 3, is to this presentation by Buskist and Keeley. And I've learned that if I look for articles by Buskist and Keeley, I get a lot of good information about this teacher behaviors checklist, which they developed by asking students about their best professors and their particular behaviors that made them effective teachers. And so there's a lot more out there than a paper presentation in 2005 that's accessible if you're interested in digging deeper. Let's go to the next slide. Hey. And so Buskist and Keeley developed this teaching behaviors checklist based on their research. You can see they studied 313 students, evaluating 3 instructors. And they were looking for positive behaviors that effective instructors exhibited, and they came up with this list as 28 behaviors. And as you can see, they're all positive behaviors that students respond to. And so that in itself, I think, is a great idea that has potential applications at any institution, including ours. This goes into a little more detail about those behaviors. The narrow left-hand column lists those 28, 14 of them on this slide and 14 on the next, those 28 teaching behaviors. And then the wide right-hand column gives Keeley and Buskist's descriptions of those behaviors. So again, you can freeze the video if you want to read that. But again, you can see it's describing positive, warm, collegial, effective teaching. And so here is the rest of the list. And again, you can take a closer look if you need to. And so what interested me about this, besides the fact that it's inherently kind of really interesting, is that, and the fact that it's about teaching effectiveness and so on, and reaching and engaging students, is, it occurred to me after the presentation, well, there's a lot of overlap between that 28-item teacher behavior checklist and our list of Franciscan values that are a part of our mission at Our Lady of the Lake College. And so what I've done here is just, it's hardly even a draft, it's more like brainstorming. I listed the 28 behaviors on one side and then just sort of brainstormed, well, what are the associated Franciscan values that relate to those teaching behaviors? And so you can see in some cases I've listed more than one of the Franciscan values in association with one of the behaviors. Service pops up frequently. Service comes up frequently on this list because, for example, authoritative doesn't seem like it might be aligned with anything on the list of Franciscan values except service. And I put service because effective teaching is how we serve our students, one of the ways we serve our students. So if their Keeley and Buskis research shows that being an authoritative teacher is a way to teach effectively, then that's a way of serving students. So this is the first half of the list, and this is the second half of the list. And so even more service on this one. That's kind of my fallback Franciscan value. But so I just thought that was interesting, the idea of positive psychology, the idea of positive behaviors that make teachers effective and engaging, and the idea that these could relate to our Franciscan values. And so, you can imagine the application of this intersection might be any of our initiatives that have to do with mission effectiveness, any of our efforts. If we decide to make any changes to course evaluation instruments, we might want to consider this teacher behavior checklist as a starting point or as a source of some ideas and so on. So that's all I've got at this point. I just wanted to spend a few minutes sharing what really seemed relevant to me when I was at this conference. There was lots of good stuff, but this in particular stuck out as something other people at the lake might be interested in. So I hope you've enjoyed this presentation, and I'll see you on campus.